had that was confirmed from the get-go. So a train spotter, I believe, is the one that saw that. And then I also saw the report when it came in. It looks like it was near part of the courthouse, I believe. And then we've also had some of the reports of some of the damage, even as the frontal boundary was still coming into the area, starting in and around Cordele, where they saw a lot of rain from some of these bigger and slow-moving storms, and that led to some flooding, actually trapping some folks inside of their homes here for a little while until they could get some helps. Sterling, Brobston, and I would say if it's not sitting over top right now, it's going to be here in the next couple of minutes out near Piles Marsh, Shady Acres here, Pine Haven, and into the Ridgewood Plantation area, Clover Heights and the Glendale Gardens area. Most of the active weather that you're going to see, excuse me, is going to sit just to the north. So we'll travel Highway 25 up to around Fraser's Crossing, just inside of where that warning sits. The Boyce Estates area, by the way, in Broadfield, you've got just a couple of minutes before that's going to set in. So it's 216 right now. I would say close to about 220, 225 over top before it will spread all the way here to the edge of the box, and that's going to be roughly about the 245 timeline, and that will be the expiration here of our tornado warning. And as soon as we get Janice back, and we'll also, Janice is taking over for Michelle now, and what we'll do here is we'll do some of the updates, make sure that what we're seeing here is still coming down in real time and it hasn't expired early. As I was explaining before, the National Weather Service, if they see that the threat of what was tornadic has gone away, they'll actually expire these, but inside of our warning system, it goes until the clock says 2:45. So we'll look to see if we've seen any expirations. We always go back just to double check, because sometimes as we're watching these, we'll also start to get the reports of, hey, this was confirmed, that whether it was a debris signature or somebody on the ground, or we've got reports of damage, so it's another way that we continue to monitor the storm itself. So what we're watching right now is into Glenn County as this continues largely over Highway 25 as it starts to end the pounding that it was taking there over Highway 22, and now begins to extend over I-95. We were showing you the DOT cam there at the Florida-Georgia line, and even with some of the lighter rain still kicking up a huge cloud of mist and drizzle. So it's the oils and everything coming up off the road that actually make it a little bit more difficult. I'm actually going to zoom in here just for some of the city names. Makes it a little more difficult because your wipers are, trying to keep up, and all you're doing is smearing the grime across the windows. So that aids in its own issues of becoming that much more cumbersome while you're out on the road, much more dangerous potentially. And it doesn't have to be just on I-95. It can be over here at Highway 25, and where we're seeing what will be more as it spreads through here from the marshes of McKay, Oglethorpe, and then north to New Hope and into Broadfield and over the Boyce Estates, even out to Highway 17. And then that does continue and encompasses areas of I-95. We have a long way to go here to get to 245. I would say that just based on what we're seeing signature-wise, this is a lot lighter. We're not seeing the dark streaks. I haven't seen any of the telltale purples. And as far as lightning, we've had a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that have gone out that had no thunder with them. They were more big gusty downpours that were coming through in areas of St. Johns County. This one, even it takes in everything that we're seeing. So it goes all the way over near Patterson, Nahunta here, and continues over the open water. Here's St. Simon, so here's where our Golden Isles come to an end. But the point of it is we've got 12 lightning strikes. We had one cell that we were tracking that was pushing, 70, 80 lightning strikes. So with this one kind of being sparsely populated, what we might be seeing here is the overall cell beginning to collapse, and that would take out. And the icon that we've been watching here as far as that spin, that one has also gone away from this particular cell. So we'll watch to see if we're seeing the early expiration here. As a matter of fact, here's what I'm going to step over and just check the chat real quick to see if this is continuing. Tornado for Glenn. It did say it was a large area of rotation that was detected, and I haven't seen an expiration to it yet. So that one does continue here into Glenn County, and if it does stay all the way up to the end, then it takes us out to those Golden Isles. You can see where the warning box, and that's the one in purple, but a lot of the area of red here continues to lift to the north. So let's put some tracks here. I'll tell you what we'll grab. This is our squall line, and we're going to take the leading edge that does extend just outside of the box, and we'll go with its current speed. So there's the same areas that we continue to watch. You've got the Broadfield area at the Plantation, Ridgewood, 2-minute window. New Hope give you about 7 minutes. So Broadfield, same thing here. Boyce Estates, if you're getting the alerts, time to head inside. Marshes and McKay, about a 11-minute window. And then on the periphery, on the outside, would be the north end, and that's going to take us up to about 14 minutes. And we're already starting to see at the edge of our warning box here, Broadfield and in the New Hope area, some of the heavier of the rain that continues. Lightning strikes, again, down to about 7. So I think the weakening of this overall system, the rotation may be broad. And I tell you, let's just double check that. Easy enough just to step over and click in some tools. So let me explain the colors since these may be new to the folks that are watching. The reds and greens, this is incoming and outgoing wind. Let me clear that box out of the way. And what we're watching for, okay, we'll do that here in just a second. So normally when the parameters are popping, and what we've noticed and what you have here is roughly, and it's only shy of 60 miles an hour by a couple of miles per hour. So what you have here with these 25-mile-an-hour winds, they're racing in from the east to the west. Meanwhile, these are moving away, and what we have creates the rotation. So this is what triggered the tornado warning to begin with, and it says pretty broad, and you can see, and I'll tell you what, we'll do it just to show you what broad means in terms of the tornadic activities. We'll go into our toolbar here, and let's just go from the green to where the vibrant reds come through. So we'll go just past High Hill Lake area. So that's about 5.5 miles. All right, so why is that significant? If this was much tighter, something that was, say, wrapped up inside of a half a mile or even a mile, this rotation would be much more defined. But you get something that is stretched out here 3, 4, 5 miles. You've got basically a large cell that continues to slowly rotate in that counterclockwise form. Brianna, anytime you want to chime in, it looks like these wet roads, just what I was saying here, all that road grime getting kicked up, windshields are working overtime.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like we've got some issues there where state troopers are lending a hand.
Yeah, we're actually looking live at a traffic cam from I-75 as we enter Florida. You can see just how wet it is out there. Traffic is still moving, but clearly you want to pack your patience when you're heading on the road, especially right now as we're in the middle of this warning. You see cars look like they're driving slowly, but you can see there that the ground is completely soaked right now. Richard, this is just one example of what people are experiencing right now as we're monitoring this tornado warning.
It is. And, you know, you're trying to get somewhere. Maybe you've got your phone laying next to you. Hopefully you're not looking at it on the roads, but you might be getting the alerts. And if yours is set up like mine, then you get a distinct tone that says, hey, we've got dangerous weather coming, whether it's severe thunderstorms or tornadoes. When we were looking at the where the state trooper was sitting, something important, just as a reminder, since it's fairly new here to the state, but when you see the emergency vehicles or anybody with their hazard lights and they're pulled off, remember we got to slow down as we're moving by, and if we can and it's safe, move over and give them that extra lane just to be safe here. And that's, I believe, is going to continue to happen along our highways here through the rest of the afternoon and early evening as the rain comes through. You can see just off to the side here where so much of the rain, I'm trying to point into the camera, but basically you see the gully there starting to fill up with water. Some of the areas that we've seen 1, 2, 3+ inches of rain. And as I mentioned, as it was moving into our area there around the Cordell area, we did see quite a bit of rainfall leading to some flooding. The threat here continues. I just went and double checked to see if we were going to see an early expiration on this. And so far that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I think we'll be riding this one out here all the way to 2:45 for the expiration. Currently what we're seeing, very broad rotation that could tighten up and that would prompt the potential for, tornado on the ground type of idea. But with that broad circulation continuing, 2:45 is the expiration. A lot of what we're seeing, and as far as that rotation, is lifting almost to the northern part here of that watch or the warning box as we continue. And there are 2 warning boxes that we have. We've got the one that's in yellow that flashes, and you can see it takes us all the way out over the water. That's our severe thunderstorm. And then in purple is where we have our tornado warning, and got about 20 minutes left over on it at 2:45. There's I-95 as the US 17 kind of snakes under back and forth again. Real pretty road here, and actually it would be the one that I would favor on a day like today versus traveling in the mist that continues to get kicked up, especially with some of those bigger and those multi-wheel trucks. Where were they? We're at State Road 143 here, and that is currently behind me. That's looking a little bit better as we're not seeing quite the heaviest of the wet weather. Oh, the motorcycles going by. I was thinking about that when we first started to track some of these storms. You know, how many of the folks that are in Daytona there for Bike Week may be watching their weather app, hopefully the Weather Authority app, and, you know, whether they're planning their departure today to try to beat some of the bigger traffic tomorrow. I think tomorrow would still be the better day. Not only that, the temperatures will be cooler and feeling very much spring-like once we get through with what is kind of giving us a taste of late spring and early summer type of weather here. Lightning count is down to just 4, got a couple of strikes, and if you notice, these are outside of the tornado warning. Folks that are around the Darien area, as we continue to lift up toward I-95 northward, will start to get into that rumble of rainfall spreading and continuing along Highway 17 as we continue northward into the downpours, even to the west of Highway 25. We're still only seeing that one lightning strike. And I mean, I've got to extend the view quite a ways here, well outside of those warnings to get into the double digits. So coming back closer to home there, we've got a fresh one that just popped up, and I think that's going to take us back to where we were before. And that's 4 lightning strikes. Overall, I think that this has become somewhat benign as a storm. I'm not seeing anything that would highlight any of the rotation that we were seeing before, other than what would be broad scale. And I think that's just indicative, period, of what we have happening here in real time with the southwest wind or the wind from the southwest, and then as these thunderstorms come through trying to create their own. But there's that hail core that we were talking about. That's that area of purple that we started to watch in and around Highway 25. This is actually where, and I said, you know, we were seeing that percentage go from 40%, 50, 60, and then it maxed out 90. And I was like, hey, this is going to be tornadic. But you've got the river right here. You see all the little oxbows and everything in between. But that's really where it started to flare up, having a bit more of a tighter signature for the rotation. That's where the icon, that little cone that we were tracking earlier, as it was popping over there near Prosperity and what was it, Waynesville, when we first started tracking the same complex. And that was as it took us into, I believe that was at 1 o'clock. So here we are at 2 o'clock, which, by the way, was going to be the original expiration time for the tornado watch. At 2 o'clock, 2 more hours added to that. So if you've got our alerts, I've included Nassau County and Columbia County, as well as Baker County, now into that watch here. I say we, the National Weather Service, and what we've done here is push out the alert to let folks know from Fernandina all the way back through Yulee here and into Nassau County. Charlton County continues, Baker County, and now Columbia County. And it also moves by Columbia County, but we stop here as the Tallahassee market kind of picks up areas near Hamilton and Suwannee County. So this is what we're seeing in real time as our complex here, as far as this particular cell, starts to wind down. So let me head back over here. Let's see if I can just pick the tool up with a click. Clickety click. It's just not registering to my fingertips here at the moment. It's tracking well, and it's helping us as we're watching where the cells are moving, but I'll just do it the easy way and click through. Still showing those 40 plus dBs. So, and what does that mean? It means that we've got some really heavy soaking rainfall that continues, and we'll have some of those amounts coming up. Janice will take you through this as we do that recap here later on this evening. Areas for just north of us really did see, there were some spots that looked like it was streaking through and approaching 6 to 7 inches. Like I mentioned there at Cordele, I know that we picked up in excess of 4 inches through some of the reporting sites that come through. Boys Estates, Broadfield, southward, New Hope. You're not quite seeing the heavy of the wet weather here, but this is actually looking a lot more like a rain shield now versus it was as the thunderstorms, as our lightning strikes continue to fade away. These are inside of our severe thunderstorm box, but as you see, they're not inside the tornado warning, and that tornado warning continues to shrink as this whole line continues to move out over top of the Golden Isles. Let me move this over. And maybe that's why we're seeing the extension here, because the Atlantic does have its influence, especially as you get closer to, say, Hinesville and into Savannah later today. Those are often areas, especially in the way that this frontal boundary is aligned, that sometimes has a bit more of the active weather, more so than what we see here. But maybe that's why we're seeing this extension for the timeline, because of what could be some of the influence coming in from the Atlantic here, and especially out over the marshes as it will move out over those Golden Isles. Not much left over here over I-95, and I say that just because the image has been here for about 2.5, 3 minutes now, so we should see the next update, and that's going going to take all of this area of red, what is being depicted there is our heaviest of rainfall, and then move much of this here to the east of I-95 over top of US 17. And then the next push or the next update then would carry that out over the open water. And at that point, we should be done with this. I mean, once the leading edge is out past the main threat, that's where we were seeing the broadest area of rotation. With that said, let's see what the rotation looks like here. So we've got about another 15 minutes left of the cell. So we'll just use the same tools that we were using here. And actually, so you see where there's gaps in the gray that's showing up now in between? This is what I was saying. It looks like it's starting to decouple, or it's basically opening up. If we were to go through and measure what would be in the brightest green here to some of our strongest wind to the brightest red here, we were showing 5.5 miles before. I think we're still pretty much in that same area. So here is where we have that broad area of circulation. Notice that it's over I-95. The outgoing winds continue on near North End and Windward Acres. And this still could have some gusty winds. Like I said, we were measuring at least 30 to 40 directional, and it's the combination of those two that add up for what becomes the potential for the tornadic activity. Glencoe Parkway, you're seeing some of the gusty winds just based on the color, and the same thing here. It looks like this is out near the Golden Isles Parkway, Gate Road, and just on the edge there of Pine Having, and oh, that's kind of cool. Charing Cross, you got a neat little loop there just to the east of I-95. All right, extend the view. I'm going to switch this back over to the view that we're all accustomed to, the one that shows up on our Weather Authority app, and that's just your regular radar, getting the yellows, the reds, and the greens here. In the light blue, this is where we just have the mist and drizzle, much lighter as you get to St. Simon, so you might be thinking, what's all the hubbub about? It's about what's taking place here just to the north. Same idea, you know, I'd mentioned we're talking a lot about Brunswick here, or Darien rather. Here's Brunswick to the south, largely unscathed between either the severe thunderstorm and or the tornado warning, but look what's just to the west of you. This is what's getting ready to come through. So since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and zip you on in here. That is going to cross over US 17 at I-95, and I would say Brunswick, get ready for heavier rain and the rumble of rain coming through. That should be there in about a 5 to a 7 minute window. So US 17, Brunswick, and those surrounding areas as it's going to continue to lift just to the north, moving away from US 17, clickety-click, and I-95, just flattening out my view there so we're more east to west, and that way it makes it easier. So when I'm trying to figure out and give you directions that I know where we're heading. All right, the heaviest of the rain, it is just on the edge of our warning box. 2:45 is the time. It looks like this one's going to go to the end on that one. The yellow that extends beyond this is where we have our severe thunderstorm warning that coincides, couples over, if you will, where we're seeing that, thank you very much. Can you repeat that one more time? Oh, perfect, thank you. Let's go to Brianna. You got some info there from somebody out of Glenn County.
Yeah, I just spoke with the Glenn County Commissioner. She says as of now, there's no reports of any damages in Glenn County. I'm asking right now, or at least working to find out if they have any crews on standby in case there is any damage from this possible tornado. They're aware of the warning. They're just trying to monitor it and trying to make sure that they can be prepared in case of the worst. But that's right now what we're following. Back to you, Rich.
That is fantastic. I'm not disappointed to hear that. You know, I don't want to alarm people for not, having something that's actually on the ground like the confirmed ones that we've had here so far for today. This is the area, by the way, where we're seeing that broad area of rotation. And what's interesting is that where it's showing would be sort of a reverse hook. Sometimes you see it and they actually kind of curve in that counterclockwise way. This would be the weaker part of the rotation with the lighter, and this would be the stronger part as it tries to whip around. But normally what you would see would actually be on the leading edge of that. So it's interesting that we are still seeing some broad circulation in sort of a reverse pattern that we would normally see if we were watching for something severe. Thank you, by the way, for checking in on Brantley County and for the folks there taking the time to give us the updates here. One of the ways that we know that if we're actually putting, the forecast to the tools to work here is to also see what's going on the ground, and that's why we reach out to some of those officials. So we've got the second of our severe thunderstorm warning. This is the one just outside of Folkston here. The elongation of that box that at one point went way over the state line is kind of shrunken down a little bit, but this is the next area that we're going to be watching into that complex, and this is what is moving into, and will be very quickly here, moving into areas of Charlton County as we'll continue to monitor this. Then Janice is going to take over, and she'll have the rest of these, and hopefully it's not as stormy as what we've seen. She came in early here just to get ready for what have been some of the storms, and it does look like, let me move the map here to the north, as it's just caught my eye. So we are seeing some severe thunderstorm warnings, and you might be thinking, all right, how is it a thunderstorm if there is literally zero lightning? We are still seeing, even with these particular cells here, like the one that's over World Golf Village and I-95, we're still seeing some really strong, some gusty wind that continues to come through along World Golf Parkway here, moving just away from the tee boxes into World Golf Village. And I'll lift you up to the north, and we'll pull up some of the roads here for the folks in Northeast Florida. So, of course, we've got IGP, International Golf Parkway. I think I said World Golf, but International Golf Parkway. This is going to head over to US 1, head south, and you'll have the airport there into St. Johns County. And as far as some of the bigger spots, you got South Ponte Vedra. It looks like it'll extend, with some of it coming up to around the Roscoe Road area. The deeper of the downpours right now are still just to the west of US 1. So look for a timeline on this to, where are we now, about 237. So I would say about 245, that anywhere from South Ponte Vedra lifting northward. Nocatee had some of the go-rounds come through here, and we're back to areas of Palm Valley and moving northward. And we also had a report earlier, somebody there at Jack's Beach. Let me take you even more north. So here's Palm Valley. It actually comes up just to the south, as it looks like a lot of that's out toward the Iguana area. Then you got Pablo Keys, and there you go. I got a report that somebody said, hey, we got a pretty good downpour here at Jack's Beach, and that's what's just getting ready to leave. So it looks like folks may have been trying to do a little duck and run if they were out on the pier. Meanwhile, right here at the the county line rather, for Duval and St. Johns County, as the downpours continue. The yellow that you see here as you move over the water, those are going to be the marine advisories because of some of these big gusty, even though they're being labeled as thunderstorms. We're not seeing the lightning with them, but they're still coming through almost as really strong gust front kind of ideas. All right, let's go back to what we started with here, and that's going to be our tornado warning. The timeline now give us about 7 minutes, and it looks like even from before we get all the way zoomed in, that we've got most of what is that active part here moving outside of our warning box, but the area that where we saw some of that rotation does continue with that same sort of a reverse hook to it, and the lightning strikes where we've had as little as 4. We're up to about 14, but we are looking at a pretty long stretch there that takes us outside of Darien and continues here to the north. So our warning box will continue. What do we got, about another 6 minutes now? Time seems to get a little bit slower as we get closer to the end of some of these warnings. New Hope, Marshes at McKay, Oglethorpe Manor, a couple of minutes here in the heaviest of the rainfall. Will have since moved to the east. The same thing goes for North End, as that is going to take us outside of the box, but anywhere out near the Pikes Bluff area, and then also out near Lawrence Road, you are going to get your share here of what will be at least the tail end of it, of some of the heavier rain coming through. Windward Acres, just starting to see some of the lessened effects here as those are starting to break down, and the same idea as you get closer to the Bell Point. Let's see, the recitation signature continues. Yep, not seeing an expiration for that as of yet, so it does look like this is going to go all the way to the wall with the 245 expiration. Let's go into, I want to head back over. So this is the area before, and I want to see if it's still showing up in that same spot. This is where we had the rotation. So we'll head back over to our colors here. And there's a little bit, but that is literally on the edge of the box. We'll do a little query just to see what the darker colors here, and I'll show you what we're talking about. See, the dark is 17, and a dark red is about 19, but it's the lighter colors that have, let's see if we can find one. These are all fairly dark, so I don't think we're going to see anything really above 20 miles an hour. There's 10, there's 25. So this does look like we're starting to see some of the collapse that's coming through as it's not as pronounced for the rotation. But let me turn back on the radar, and you'll see that this is, generally the same area. So as the radar updates, it is generally the same spot, that little bow right here where we're watching with that rotation. All right, so just a couple of minutes to go. It says 5 minutes, but I think in real time what we're seeing here, other than some broad rotation and what will be some gusty winds, the end of this particular cell. So this one should expire on time. That'll leave us with the severe thunderstorm, and then the marine threat is that will continue to move off of those Isles of Gold. By the time you get to Brunswick and head south here along I-95, even over to areas around Woodbine, it's not looking too bad. Well, there you go. I mean, there's the view. So we were talking about crossing over in St. Simons. You can see, I mean, that doesn't look bad at all. It looks like the heaviest definitely staying to the north, and still a beautiful view there. I'm trying to see. Yeah, look at the palm trees. There's barely any fronds that are flapping there. So here's where the gusty part is. By the time we head south and get out to St. Simons, that certainly looks a bit more favorable. When you do look out over the open water, though, that's kind of cool here. I keep trying to point like you're going to see my hand, but you see where it gets sort of that hazy look to it, and you can see the ripple on the water. That could be some of the gusty winds coming out from that storm cluster here, and that's kicking up some of the mist right off the top of the Atlantic, and sometimes it churns the water up along with it, gives you that kind of a foggy and hazy view. We've got about 4 minutes, actually a little less now, about 3 and change to go for our current warning. As soon as this one's done, we'll do the same thing. We'll put you back on programming, and we'll continue to watch these storms. This one looks like it is, if not completely outside of the box, 99% of it is, with just this tail end that's left over. Inside of the box itself, we've got 3 lightning strikes. The total here, as we get some of that Atlantic influence, the water, the air gets over top of it, helps with the lift, the buoyancy, and that helps to bring out more of those thunderstorms. All right, so speaking of the thunderstorms, here's where we continue for just to the west of Folkston, all the way back over to areas around Fargo. And as I showed you a little while ago, we've got the one here into St. John's as it's moving away from World Gulf, moving into areas around South Ponte Vedra. And then north, our last of the big clusters, come on back here, looks like they have since moved. And if not completely, they will be within the next minute or two here, moving off of the beaches. St. Johns County, we've seen that cluster already move through. So that leaves this last one here that will continue for about, where's that? I'd say 5-10 minutes at most as it moves over South Ponte Vedra, A1A, and the same idea will then be out over the open water. Let me get a view here just so you can see what we're talking about. It does stretch over to US 1, but with the speed these are moving in excess of 20 miles an hour, some approaching 30 miles an hour, the stretch here is only a couple of miles moving inland, so that's not going to take much time at all before that will move away. 2:43, which means we should have 2 minutes to go with the warning that continues to the north. So let's drag ourselves up the beach here through where the warning now kicks in, Nassauville across the river and into Fernandina, including that of American Beach. And here we are back into the areas around Brunswick. And as we showed you, St. Simons, where the light rain looks like it's just starting to move through. It was actually pretty there just a little while ago, and another minute and a half here before we'll see this expiring. The thunderstorm complex will continue. You can see Mayport, that's also looking pretty good as the storm complexes there continue to push off of the beaches. Although they cross the intercoastal and head out into the open water, there's more to go as the line continues across the entirety here of the viewing circle. So let me open up that map as we've got the frontal boundary that extends along with our warnings here all the way back over to the Gulf of Mexico. This line still has to push through. It will have a little bit of gusto, as you can see here, from the potential for some gusty downpours to what could be some of the thunderstorms. And now within about the next 30 seconds, we'll see the expiration of our current tornado warning. And that will leave us, hopefully, quiet here, at least for a little bit, as we'll continue to track some of the severe storms. We'll keep you posted. It's a great idea to have our Weather Authority app on a day like today. Use that little blue circle there on the radar so that you can go to Futurecast to see what's coming. You can go to Storm Track, just like what we're doing here, to track the storms to see, are they going to get in your path? Are they going to be in the way? And, if you're doing some travels later today and you're wondering just how much of the rain's left over, you can also just use the radar, and then Futurecast to see how long it's going to stick around. Maybe it, delays your start time for some of your plans by a little bit, but it gets you out there when it's safer and that the roads are dry. All right, both of the boxes have since moved off of the map, so that means it's time for me to send you back to regular programming. We'll regroup. Janice is here, and we've got the rest of the team as we get ready to take you through the rest of this Impact Day. And let me just explain briefly once again the Impact Day versus a Weather Authority Alert Day. If it was a Weather Alert Day, it would mean the entire area has the potential for what we're seeing here in severe weather. With the Impact Day, it allows us to do what we're doing now and really put the focus on where the danger is as it approaches and until it leaves. And that's what we'll continue to do here on this Saturday. We'll see you back if severe weather warrants.